Budget warning to Labour as polls find voters are more senile since the election. We're going to read into this exclusive from iNews, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an exclusive from iNews with the headline that the budget warning to Labour as poll find voters are more senile since the election. Conservative supporters have become more pessimistic about the ability of politics to drive change, while Labour voters are not feeling any more positive than before the election. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So before I go any further, I just want to remind you, like I always say whenever we are looking at polls and graphs and whatnot, with anything, to always take them with a pinch of salt. It's a gauge amongst a small group of people. It's not what everyone thinks. It's just what a selected group of people thought at that time when the poll was carried out, as would be with any other polls. And that's a really well, but it may give a bit of insight into what some people are thinking. Now, this is about seniles or cynicism towards politics here, and how do we honestly feel about that? And I generally would like some feedback from you guys in the comments about how you're feeling about politics. How you felt before the general election, how you feel after the general election is a question I think is how you feeling after the general election. And I think probably be better, is after the budget, if some of you do choose to listen into it or read about it, maybe come back on this video and let me know how you feel after the budget. Maybe your views might have changed since before the budget and maybe after the budget, perhaps potentially as well. Because I do feel that we've had 100 plus days of Labour in government. We've had some bad stories coming out of Labour. There's no question. But there's also been some bad policies that have come out of Labour. And they need to be called out for what they are. The 14 years of Conservatives have been diabolical. And yet still the Conservative supporters are still rallying behind them, despite the fact that they, practically burnt the whole of the UK, in my opinion, with their antics. But hey ho, they want to continue to destroy the UK. That's their view. But as for Labour supporters, like a lot of them are kind of hoping and hinging on the fact that the bad days are now, but the good times will come further down the road. Now, I want to say I hope that's the case, and I want to believe that's to be the case, and I would like to think that, after a year or two of Labour and being in power, that maybe we can say, yeah, things are a bit better, or yeah, I can see improvements that, there's more money in people's pockets and whatnot, or maybe that, there's improvements to High Street, or some real positivity. Now, there have been some good policies by Labour, there's no question about that, but there have been some bad, but the bad ones have been more highlighted. That is one thing for sure. But I think it's a very interesting fact about whether or not there has been more senile about the election, about specific voters. And I think the local elections, some of the council elections we've had recently do speak a lot. The by-elections, that local elections that we'll have whenever they're next coming around. I don't know if there's local elections next year or not. It might be the year after, but the next set of rounds of them will speak a lot about, from a local point of view, about how some people are feeling. Although it may not have something to do with the general consensus of how the majority of the country, the majority of the UK are feeling, it may give some insight into what some people may be thinking as well on that. And I do think that there is a great deal of this. There's one thing that I think everyone can agree with, is that many people have lost distrust in politics. And I generally believe that distrust was far more when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, not when Theresa May became Prime Minister, when Boris Johnson became Prime Minister. I generally think from them is when politics really took a turn for the worst, and the distrust really went downhill from there, because we had a profound liar at number 10, a profound liar, and a denier of any faults or mistakes whatsoever as well. And still to this day, he doesn't believe he's done any faults. And then you've had successive prime ministers with the same thing. You've had Rishi Sunak, not sorry for things that he's made. You had Liz Truss, who's not sorry for any of the things we've made. And at the moment, every time I see interviews and whatnot, not just Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, but some of his cabinet members and how they're talking and discussing on talk TV shows and whatnot, and you're definitely feeling a lot of the conservative vibes off them, especially when it comes to questions and it comes to answers. Now, yes, of course, at the time of this recording, this is before the budget, and they're asking questions about the budget, which is like, can we not just wait till the budget and ask about some other questions, maybe? I really wish, this whole, like, what they class as a working people would just, like, I agree with Robespierre on what he said about this. It should be based off PAYE if you're classed as a working person. But I mean, I can say I'm a working person because I've had 15 plus years of it. 17 years actually, 18 years actually, plus maybe even 20 years of working in retail. That was working class. I'm not working class right now, but I can fair to say I've had my fair share of working in working class, I would say. But hey, nothing to say that I wouldn't be working class again. But anyway, let's read a bit more into what these numbers are saying, guys. So, the public have grown more senile about politics since the general election. Major polling has found, marking the scale of this challenge facing the government as its first budget looms. More than 3/4 of voters now believe that the politicians only look out for themselves, according to the findings by Public First, and a similar proportion say that politicians do not care about the views of the public. The research comes as a warning to Labour ahead of the government's first budget on Wednesday, though it could be by Wednesday you guys see this, and to the Conservatives, whose new leader will be unveiled on Saturday. To Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are aiming to push for a more optimistic message after months of gloomy warnings about the state of the public realm, which they blame on the precedented 14 years of Tory rule. But first public rounds so far, the government has not been able to make voters feel more positively about politics since taking office, and they're less likely to believe that politicians can drive change. Labour's landslide election victory is partly driven by support from members of the public who felt particularly senile about politics, the research concluded. 100%. I also think it's also really important to emphasise about like this government hasn't been very positive about the future. Like, they haven't been saying, like, yeah, we're going to make things great again. We're not going to fix things, that sort of thing. There's not a sense of positivity coming out of this government. And there's not a feeling of optimism coming out of this government. And people want something that makes them feel that they're going to be better. There's been a lot of negativity, a lot of downbeat. And that's probably something maybe that businesses have kind of complained about, yes, with Labour as well. Saying to them, like, you guys are too negative. You need to be more positive. You want people to invest. You want to grow the economy and whatnot. But you're being too negative about everything. Try and be a bit more positive. Because all we've had is for a long time is negativity. So we'd like something different. So this is one of the pollings here from Public First. Pre and post election cynicism. This is Public First seeing some score. So cynicism pre-election and post-election grey there, and then red there. You can see Conservative, Labour, Reform, and the national average there. So more in particular, more cynicism since post-election rather than pre. But there's a bit more from the pre in terms of Labour voters that they've conducted rather than Reform. But the numbers are a lot higher for Reform voters there. So since the elections, Labour supporters have become no less senile and in some ways seem to be more dissatisfied, with just 17% saying that they feel well represented by a political party, down from just 26% before. Meanwhile, those who voted Conservative become less optimistic about the ability of politics to make a difference, apparently in response to the defeat of their favourite party. If an election was called tomorrow, who would you vote for? If an election was called tomorrow, more senile pre-2024 election, Labour. More senile post 2024 election, Labour again, with 18% there. Interesting numbers there: 31% to 18%. Conservatives 11 to 18. Reform 16 to 24. More people would have voted Reform there. Interestingly, according to this, Lib Dems 6 to 8%. Green Party 7 to 6%. Another party or candidate 5 to 7%. I would not vote 8%. Don't know is 13 to 11%. Interesting numbers there from Public First. The overall proportion of people who agree with the statement that politicians only look out for themselves has risen from 70% to 78%. Those saying that most political discussions are just talk with no real action have gone from 72% to 77%. Yeah, 100% agree with that assessment. While 77% also agree that it doesn't matter what the public thinks because politicians will do what they want anyway, up from 70% before the election. That's definitely a consensus of feeling amongst people. I said, right, our public first told the eye. Labour came into power with more senile voting based on other parties, and nothing they said has been done since the election has reduced that to cynicism. Now Conservative voters are more senile too. People just don't believe that political action will happen. Commitments and announcements all feel meaningless. It's hard to see a way back. The souring mood among public appears to be harming political positions. Of those who voted for the party in July are classed as highly senile based on their responses. Fewer than 60% still back Labour, while 75% of the voters who are classed as less senile have remained loyal to Sir Keir's party. Reform UK is the biggest beneficiary of the increase in cynicism. 1/4 of the more senile voters would support the insurgent's right-wing party, allowing it to displace Labour in the first place among its group. The findings come after worried Labour MPs signalled concern over the mixed messages being put out by ministers ahead of the budget. One told the Eye last week it's a high-wire act because they have to pull it off. They need to get the narrative right because if something has obviously gone wrong so far. Many Labour MPs see the budget as a make-or-break moment for the Conservatives after a shaky start that saw its first few months in power overshadowed by a backlash in the cuts to universal winter fuel payments, the freebie routes and turbulence in Number 10, which led to the departure of Chief of Staff Sue Gray. Yeah, the budget, I don't know if it's a make-or-break for this part of government. I feel that's far too senile to say it's going to break the government. I don't see it like that. I mean, the thing is that we are expecting negative stuff from this budget. But if there are some positives out of this budget, like that will bring people's opinions back up, then we'll wait and see. But that's kind of my general consensus right now on it. If a general election was called tomorrow, who would you vote for? High cynicism, 58% said Labour. And not high Syrianism, 75% Labour there. Interesting numbers there. Quite 5% there for Green there. Interesting. Both of the Conservative leadership candidates told the Eye that politicians need to be clear and honest with their voters in order to win back trust, Robert Jenrick says. The public are rightly senile of us right now. The only way we can regain trust is by clearly and comprehensively setting out our policies to deliver the country and for the country and the drama. Kevin Bagnall added, the lack of trust is because too often politicians promise things and don't deliver. We did it too much in government, especially on immigration, and now Labour are putting up taxes after promising during the first election that they wouldn't. I want to restore people's trust by putting principles first, showing consistency and honesty. Spokesperson for Labour Party declined to comment. But Robert Jenrick and Kevin Bagnall are both liars, so... Do you agree with the phrase, politicians only look out for themselves? Interesting there. Reform voters very high on that. Labour voters very high on that. National average. Conservative voters also quite high on that as well. The first public research, which involves 3 polls, each of 2,000 people, conducted between June and this month, distinguished between 3 sorts of anti-politics. The largest group contained the senile voters who helped Labour into power. The second were made up of disjointed people who are highly politically engaged but do not feel represented by any party. And the third consists of the powerless who have switched off from politics altogether. Some people have switched off from politics altogether. I think that's very, very honest, very true to say, yeah. And I don't blame people for feeling that way. But like I said at the start of this video, to take polls with a pinch of salt, guys, and I think we should take them with a pinch of salt in that regard. However, as I said, a lot of things do ride on the budget. But even though people are switched off from politics now, doesn't mean to say that people can't be turned back on again in the future. If people can feel more money in their pockets, if people can feel that this government is intent on actually making the changes that they say, to stop talking and actually start showing it, then if people can feel the change rather than just hear the change, then they will comfortably win the next general election, regardless of even if they lose a few seats to other political parties. But it's about them showing that. And, regardless of political party, I generally want people to be better off. I want people to be better off. I'm not somebody who's hoping, I hope this Labour government crushes and burns all for the sake, because I don't like Labour. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to like Labour. I don't trust Labour either. But I would rather this Labour government actually does what it says they're going to do, make people's lives better. And if they do, then I'll be happy. Because that's what I want. I want people's lives to improve. And yes, like I said we wait the first 100 days in power. And there's some good things they've done, and there are some bad things that they have done. A lot is riding on this budget, like I said. But after this budget, coming in the year, they will have a full year to show what they can do in 2025. There'll be no excuses. There'll be no, they can't just keep blaming the Conservatives forever. And people will start expecting something. So, we will see. So what do you guys think of this poll? What do you guys think? You think people are more senile? Do you agree with some of this? Like I said at the start of the video, what are you guys feelings about the before the election and after the election? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comment section below. But if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media so others are notified of this video. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further and support me in the work that I do here, you could do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or you can join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.